Today I'm going to show you how to find the information you need to do your journal article summary. So I've logged into Sally McFake's account. Sally McFake has several classes here. You can see 3 physics classes and 2 math classes. So you can see the upcoming deadline. You can see, because she has 2 math classes, she has 2 journal article approvals due. If you go on down, you can see Q1 journal article summary is due on the 24th. Since she has 2 classes, she has 2 due. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the period 2 class, and again, you can see the upcoming stuff that's going on, but I'm going to go to units. So if you go to units and click on the first unit, now if you are in HL, you'll just click on the first unit in HL. So descriptive statistics is the first unit. You'll see that these first documents are going to help you. Okay, so you have a journal article summary description, you have a sample journal article submission, you have the learner profile traits. All 3 of these will help you. Okay, now just to take notice, the SL formula booklet is there in case you lose your copy. Notes are there, stuff like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the journal article summary description. That's a description of what you're going to need to do. So I'm going to open that up. It's taking its sweet time, but I'm sure it'll get there eventually. And this is where you hope someone from the class has a nice story to tell to fill the time. It's certainly taking its time. Okay, so here we finally have the document. I'm just going to hit Enable Editing so I can take a look at it. And it has the journal article summary requirements. So it tells you to find an article. That's the first thing, and that due date is earlier. What you're going to do is you're going to email the article to me, and I'm going to let you know whether it's one that's appropriate. I'm going to show you some ideas about where you can find them. So first, you choose a feature article from a scientific journal or a chapter in a book, and it has to relate to the course in some way. And the reason we have you do this is because you next year are going to be writing a 6 to 12 page research paper. And we'd like you to get some ideas about different topics you might be interested in and how they relate to math. Okay, so these are just some general subject areas. Okay, actually they're just, they call them stimuli. They're things to get you thinking about math and your world. Okay, so here they took just the common word water. Okay, and they tried to think of everything they could that had to do with water. Okay, now I'm going to flip to the back here because this is just the same thing, only larger. Okay, and so let's see if I can make that a little bit larger here for you. Okay, so you see water, and they thought of everything they could that had to do with water. Oh, maybe faster sailing in the America's Cup. How could we accomplish that? Maybe it's got something to do with the sails, or the water current, the wind, the weight, material, the boat. Okay, then they thought about how much water is left in the world. Okay, you can see some of their ideas there. Fountains and water designs. Okay, what could you do there? You could be designing them, modeling water jets, the effect of salt-saturated water on polar ice caps. Okay, so they thought about that. Predicting storm surges, predicting tsunamis, floods. How big can a wave get? Rainfall versus little drizzle versus torrential rain. Maybe modeling raindrops, statistical study of rain, collecting rain. Okay, so the idea is, and this is one of the processes we're going to go through next year, is we're just going to brainstorm. Think of something simple. How does it relate to math? What is something I could study and research about it? Well, for now, I'm going to move on back up here. Okay, you just want to think of something you're interested in and how it relates to math and find an article on it. Okay, so the first step is going to be to get that article approved. You're going to email it to your teacher. It has to be academic in nature. I'm going to show you some examples, at least 4 to 5 pages. You email it to the instructor or give us a hard copy if you don't have an electronic version available. Do that by the due date, and then if it's not acceptable, you'll get another chance, but you have to do that pretty short turnaround there. Okay, so once you get the article, you're going to write the summary. The summary is going to consist of 3 parts. You're going to write a 2-page summary of the article. You're going to answer 3 questions, and you're going to have an annotated bibliography, and you need all 3 of those. Okay, so the summary is just MLA format, so that's supposed to be double-spaced. Okay, you can be longer than 2 pages, but that's the minimum. Standard 1-inch margins. Use some kind of standard font. Okay, you have to use correct grammar. That's part of it. You're going to need to have a heading and a header and the proper numbering. You need citations on every single submission. Okay, because this isn't going to be your own original ideas. You are summarizing someone else's work. So if it's a quote, you're going to put a citation. If it's a paraphrase, you're going to use a citation. I should not read any paper without a citation. Okay, you're also going to be able to see your own originality report. Okay, so if you see that you've got too high a percentage of similarity, then you need to edit it and resubmit it. Your bibliography has to be annotated and in MLA format. Now, I'm going to show you some things that you include in an annotated bibliography. You're only going to have one source, so that's not too hard. It has to be at least 4 sentences long, or you're going to lose points. And I'm going to show you kinds of things you can answer about your source in your annotated bibliography. Okay, the question you get to choose. It kind of depends on your article. So you're going to choose 3 out of these 6 questions. In fact, I'm willing to take proposals for other questions that might be appropriate. Okay, now a couple of things you can do. You get to pick based on what you're reading. So it says, for instance, how is the article related to the material we are studying? If you say the material is not related to the material we are studying, you are going to get no credit for that answer. You should have picked something else. Okay, now notice you have to have at least 4 sentences for each question. Okay, what we mean here is 4 complex sentences, and I'll show you some examples of that. One of the questions, if you'll notice, says, how does your article relate to the learner profile? Well, you could say, my article relates to the learner profile trait of knowledgeable. It is knowledgeable because, well, you can combine that to one sentence. Okay, so we want you to think a little bit more advanced, thoughtful sentences. It's just a guideline to get you to the right spot, but you've got to do at least 4 sentences. Okay, so you can kind of look here and see what the questions are. This one, outline a topic for an exploration that could be linked to this article. What we're saying here is if this article makes you think of something you'd like to research, kind of give a rundown what you think you would research. Okay, give a little detail. If you have plagiarism, you copy somebody else's work, remember you're turning it into turnitin.com, it's going to catch it, you're going to get a 0 for plagiarism. Okay, that's academic dishonesty. You lose 5 points a day for each school day, even if class doesn't meet on that day. You can only lose 30 points, that's the most. This does count as a test grade. This is a really easy way to get a good test grade if you follow all the requirements. There are some mathematics teachers magazines in Mrs. McCormick's room that you're more than welcome to borrow. So you can look at stuff like that. There's also some good websites. Okay, so here is a list of a lot of websites. Now, it doesn't have to come from these websites, but I want you to kind of keep in mind as you look at these, some of these I'm just trying to give ideas of even things that might help you in your research paper next year. So you'll see Desmos.com. Well, that's not going to give you any sort of article at all. That's just a graph and calculator resource. Okay, it does have some activities that might get you thinking. When you see Physlets.org/tracker, that's for video analysis. You'll also actually use that in physics class, but it might give you some data that might work for a Math IA. So some of these are resources that are not articles. If you look, for instance, at this first one, the plusmass.org, just going to give you an idea about some of these articles that you might find. Okay, so you can just click on articles, and they have all sorts of articles here. You're just going to find what you're interested in. You can search to see something. Let's just see, what can you see? Let's see if this would be a good article. Okay, so taking a look at this, what you're looking for is, do you see some math? Okay, there's a formula. That's a little bit of math. Okay, it's a little bit short. Maybe I'm trying to decide. It's kind of on the border, so I might click like I'm going to print it just to try to get an idea of the length. It's hard to kind of decide, and my computer's being really, really slow. Let's see, 4 sheets of paper. Let's look at them. It's 2.5 pages really, although it is single spaced. This one's kind of on the border, okay? But if you look, let's see, uncertainty, let's just try another one. Notice this one also has a video included. It might be that with the inclusion of the videos and things like that, it'd be enough. But this has some interesting articles that you can find. That's a good one. I will warn you, some of these, like this, I'm just telling you, MIT OpenCourseWare, that's not a journal article. Okay, that's where you can actually take courses for free. Okay, similarly here, this ARXIV has very technical sites. These AP Centrals have really good articles if you go to the article pages on statistics and calculus. Okay, so there's a lot of different choices here. The sports.maths.org, okay, that has a lot of good articles. There are lots of articles, okay? You don't have to find them from these sites. I'm just trying to give you some help. Of course, you can use the data sources from the library. You can also go to UTC and look at theirs. Okay, here is what's going to help you on an annotated bibliography. Annotated bibliography, you are basically trying to evaluate your source, whether you think it's an appropriate source or not. So here are a lot of questions that you could answer in your 4-sentence long annotation to telling me about your source. Okay, so I'm going to skip down here to this one. It says, is there evidence of bias or distortion? Well, you might see evidence in the actual written word, but it also may be who's publishing it. So if you're talking about something that's published by the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, for instance, that would have bias to that particular party. So is it a neutral party? Something like that. So if you read through all these questions, you are not going to answer all of them, but answer some of them, whatever's most appropriate to give me information and evaluate your source. So 4 sentences answering some of these questions, okay? And this is just the end of it there. So I'm going to close that document, okay? So when you look at that document, that was telling me the description of the assignment itself. Now here is a sample journal article submission. Okay, so I'm going to open that up, and I have permission from this student that I can show their work as a good example. So here you can see this is Makaja's Tucker's work all the way back in 2014. So you see that it has the proper both a header and a heading in the correct order. It has a nice title, looks like it's double spaced. So he was writing on an article, How is Geometry in Tune with Bach? Okay, so you can look and see that it looks like there's 2 pages, 2.5 pages he wrote. Okay, so he's not trying to skimp or anything like that. If you have a figure, then you need to cite it. Okay, so he put the full citation here. You are allowed to put figure 1, the title, and just in parentheses put the author and the page number. He gave a full citation there. Here you can see he's got a quote, and after the quote he's got the author, in parentheses the author, and the page number, close parentheses, and the period. Now you can also do that after a portion that you are paraphrasing, okay, not even just if it's a quote, but if it's more than 3 or 4 words matching, then you probably need a quotation. You don't want to just be quotes. Okay, so again, if you are adding in a figure, make sure you do a citation for that as well, and this can be an example. So he's got 2.5 pages, and now he did not need to put a header again here. He wasn't penalized for it, but no need to put another header on this section, but he has his questions. Now, it reads, when you read the journal article summary description of the assignment, it does tell you when you pick the 3 questions, go ahead and copy and paste the questions into the document so we know which questions you're attempting to answer. And so he's told me, how is the article related to the material we're studying, and you can read about his answer. You notice that he specified certain pages. Okay, so if we look, 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences. These are not baby sentences. Okay? If you have a baby sentence, you need to throw in something extra. If you read his answers, I think you will find that they are intelligent answers. How does the article relate to the idea of internationalism? Because the first species counterpoint system allows for a universal composition method. For the most part, music notation is standardized worldwide. If the rules of the formal system are translated to another language, anyone can use the first species system to compose music, and so on and so forth, and even some historical background. So he's not just saying, well, music is a universal language, and that's it. He's really thinking about it and in the context of his article. Okay, so there's 3 questions answered with 4 sentences each, and there's the works cited page. So you see his one source, you see his annotation, and you can see how he answered the questions. Okay, so basic deal to get a good grade on this. Let's go back to the top. Okay, it's in the MLA format. It's well written. There are 2 pages at least, and then you've answered 3 questions intelligently with at least 4 sentences. You have your annotated bibliography with at least 3 sentences. Okay, so there's a nice example. Okay, now the next thing, if you open this document, it tells you the learner profile traits. That's in case you forgot what they were. Please do not say it has a learner profile trait of curious. Curious is not a learner profile trait. You will not get any credit for that question. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to go back and I think that I will just look at the dashboard again. Okay, but you want to get to your task, and you'll notice that you need to have emailed, this will just be through email to the teacher, a journal article for approval by August 28th. Okay, and so after we go through this, the rest of the time you can just look for an article and go ahead and try to email one if you find a good one. Now I'm going to go to the Q1 Journal Article Summary, and I'm going to click on that. Okay, and I can see where I can choose the file and upload it. The other thing I want to point out is you can go to the Feedback Studio. Now if you're not on a wide screen, it may be down low somewhere, but click on the Feedback Studio and it'll open up, and you can click on Summary, and if you click on Summary, and sometimes you'll find it under Settings, but right there, Summary, and it has Journal Article Summary rubric. So you'll see how it's graded. This is not an IB rubric. This is just kind of a quick, easy rubric. You notice that you're getting 10 points for correct MLA format and grammar, and that you can lose a little few points for mistakes. You notice 2 full pages is 20 points, and what happens if you write less. You can notice 4 complete sentences with specific text cited. Okay, gives you, you're going to do that for 3 different questions. If you answer in less sentences, or if they're short sentences, you can get docked there. Okay, so that's easy. That's your 3 questions. Your work cited correctly, that means it's an annotated bibliography. So if you cite it, but you don't annotate it, you're going to be here at 5 points. Okay, if you don't cite it, you're at 0. And this is just for being on time. Okay, so that lets you know how it's going to be graded. So your goal for today is to try to find a journal article that is a nice, good example and email it. And just before I go, here is one example from Plus Maths, making penalties fairer. So if you kind of glance through, try and decide, first of all, are you interested? Second of all, does it have math? Third of all, does it have 4 or 5 pages? Okay, and it's a good sign if you see some math that's worked out. And as you read these, you're really trying to think, is this something I'd like to read more about in the future or not? And so next time you can pick a topic along the same lines if you like it, and if not, pick a completely different topic. So again, going back to good old Sally McFake here and her dashboard, you need to have a journal article emailed by the 28th. That means, notice, 11 o'clock on the 28th. And then your journal article summary must be submitted by 11 o'clock on Monday. Okay? Good luck.